Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 940 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's episode has a little bit of everything. First of all, I'll tell you right up front, it's an After Dark episode because at some point, Síle will mention a suicide attempt from her teen years, but we're also going to talk about her life. She's incredibly funny and a great conversationalist. She's got some type 1 diabetes complications that we're going to talk about, and she experienced some bullying from a rather unique place. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you're interested in getting therapy, you can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/juicebox. To start using AG1 from Athletic Greens, go to athleticgreens.com/juicebox. And when you use that link, you'll get a free year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first order. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G7 and G6 continuous glucose monitoring systems. Learn more and get started today at my link, dexcom.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored today by Touched by Type 1. Head over now to touchedbytype1.org and check out all the great stuff they've got going on for people with type 1. And don't forget their big events coming up in September. I'll be speaking there. Don't miss it. Touchedbytype1.org. And find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, I am.
All right, hold on a second. We're talking and we're not recording. That's stupid. We're recording now.
Yeah. I was like, what podcast? I'm just
Well, tell people who you are for a moment.
I'm just here to talk about Bruce Springsteen. Tell people who I am.
You don't have to use your last name, but yeah, you can tell people who you are.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. My name is Síle. I am from Ireland, and I have had type 1 diabetes since 1998, when I was 4.5. And I mean, I don't know. Do you want me to tell you how old I am now, or do you want to like count on your fingers? Or
hey, listen. You don't have to be snarky. We just started, okay?
Okay, sorry.
Well, here's what I'm going to guess. You want to know how I would do this? A lot of people, there's probably a formula, but I don't care about it. 98, 2008, 2018, that's 20. Then 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, that's 25. And then you were 4.5 when it happened. So you're 29 and a half?
Yeah, that's a great
look at
method.
That. No, it's not a great method. It's a ridiculous method. Shouldn't I just... Wait, go ahead.
It reminds me of like in primary school when I was like learning my 3 times tables, and you got to figure out your own way to do it.
I figure the right way is 2023 minus 1998 plus 4.5.
That sounds more complicated.
Does it? All right. Oh, hell, who cares? Anyway, Bruce Springsteen's 73. You're going to see him in concert, and you're worried he's going to kick before you get there. Is that what we were talking about before?
It was what we were talking about, but I'm less worried now.
Because I told you he was 73.
Yeah, well, I don't know. And he's in good shape, you know.
That's a young person's perspective of 73 years old.
Well, my grandparents are in their 80s, and they're still...
Can they play Thunder Road?
No.
Well, there's my point.
No. That's true. Can they play a 5-hour set with no support? I'm not sure.
Right? While looking over their shoulder going, this Patty woman has really wormed her way into my thing. Meanwhile, I was going to tell you that oh boy, here I go. This is like me saying I don't like soccer, I think. I don't like Bruce Springsteen. And not in like I hate Bruce Springsteen. I actually like all of his music just fine. When I was growing up, he was so popular. I mean, it was just, I remember being at a middle school dance, like an after school dance. You know what I mean? When people were like 12 and 13, 14 years old. And when you would just stay after school and they would take the lights down in the cafeteria and DJ, you know, whoever from town would play records. I remember a kid coming in with Born in the USA, like on vinyl. And like taking it to the DJ and being like, you don't have this, but you should. And we should be listening to this. And I don't know, it never struck me. But as I got older, I thought, okay, his music's good. It doesn't hit me like religion like it does for some people. But then recently, Bruce Springsteen did a sit-down interview with Howard Stern. And I sat and watched the whole thing, I think on HBO Max. And it was really interesting listening to him talk about his life.
I agree. I think he's a great dude. And I also listened to his, I'm not really a podcast person. I think the first podcast I ever listened to was the Juicebox Podcast, because I went into an endocrinologist appointment, or as they're called here, a diabetologist appointment. And I said, I want an insulin pump. And he said, sure, which one? And I said, I don't know. I wasn't expecting you to say yes, so I guess I'll go think about that now. And I left and I Googled diabetes podcast or something. And that's when I started. I'm not into podcasts, but I did listen to the Bruce Springsteen and Obama podcast.
Yeah, you know what the problem with that was, is it was boring.
It wasn't like groundbreaking, but like, it was like listening to like my dad and his friends chat about, you know, it's like listening to you talk about school dances when you were a kid, you know?
Yeah, no, I think, well, that's insulting, and now we have to go. But I found Obama's podcast to be, and Bruce Springsteen being on it, to be reminiscent of two people who have too much to lose to share too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you got to be willing to say stupid things and honest things and stuff like that.
But I can also understand why Obama can't.
Oh, please, I'd keep my mouth shut too. I'd be like, I don't know, Spotify's giving me this money, so I took it. And how about school dances, right?
Nice,
Bruce?
like storytelling, and they have things in common. And they're two people I had never really pictured together, and that's nice for them.
Yeah, no,
and
of course.
Very sweet. And I don't think I would listen to it again, but it was very calming.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would sooner listen to Obama's speech on Father's Day while he was running for president. It was very good. Than I would to listen to the podcast again.
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with, obviously I'm familiar with Obama, but I have not paid as much attention to US politics as Americans.
I don't even think of his, I don't know. I like his ability to deliver the speech.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think everyone agrees he was like a good man for the speeches.
Really amazing.
Some man for one man.
Yeah, no kidding. I also met Bill Clinton once, and I understand why people would have sex with him. He's very magnetic.
My dad had dinner with him once.
And he's magnetic, right?
I mean, my dad didn't tell me that he wanted to have sex with Bill Clinton, but I believe you.
He didn't even say he was considering throwing him a hand job or something like that?
I think I was about 5 when this happened.
Oh, yeah, so probably not the right place for that story. So let's just assume your dad was willing to do that for Bill Clinton, but didn't share it with you. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, let's just assume that. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go there.
All right. So you've had diabetes for quite some time. You are the second person who has a delightful Irish accent that I've heard this week, because I just put an episode up last week, which, by the way, will be 6 months ago by the time someone hears this. And it's called HbA1c, because that's how she said HbA1c every time she said it.
I saw that episode title and I was like, is that about weed? And I don't know why I thought it was about weed.
It's just about a lady's accent and how just delightful it was. Yeah, the first time I thought you have to listen to it. Like she says, HbA1c. I can't do an accent. Obviously.
Oh, like a HbA1c.
Yeah, there you go. I should have just asked you to say it.
I believe you. But see, so I have lived in Berlin, Germany for the last 5 years. So I've developed what we call in Ireland a transatlantic accent, which is because no one can understand when Irish people speak. It's where we put on kind of an American accent so people can understand us. Since I haven't worked in a like native English speaking work environment for the last 5 years, I do have this like twang.
So you're putting on your dialect right now?
No, I mean, I'm making a conscious effort to sound less American, but I'm trying to tone it down a little, but I'm not putting on the Irish. In fact, I don't think I sound Irish at all right now.
I mean, I can hear the Irish in your voice.
During COVID, there was who was he? No, he was an English guy, and he was like, "So, how'd you lot get in then?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought there was a travel ban." And I was like, "Ireland's in the EU." And he was like, "Oh, I thought you was American." I was like, "Please leave me alone." Man on a train.
Man on a train who says thought with an F.
I possibly am exaggerating, but
perhaps not.
I was like, if anything, you shouldn't be here.
So I know your name, although in honesty, until you said your name, I was never sure how you pronounce your first name.
I get that a lot.
I would imagine. Okay. Yeah, because honestly, looking back at it now, I still don't know how to say it. Like you said your name at the beginning, and I went, "Oh my God, that's what this collection of letters means." And then now I look back at the letters, and my brain won't remember what you said 8 minutes ago.
So on my first date with my boyfriend, we had like a 7-hour first date, and about 5 hours in, I was telling a story in which someone said my name. So I was saying, and then they said, "Hey, Síle." And he goes, "Oh my God, okay, thank God, that's how you say your name." I was like, you can just ask. So same applies to you, Scott. If you forget how to say my name, you can just
Had I not found a delightful way to bring it up just now, I would have spent the next hour just avoiding saying your name.
Just avoiding, yeah. No, I know.
And I would have been masterful at it.
It's like Australian, like "G'day, Síle," like, you know, Síle. It's just spelled in a lovely Irish way.
Unlike the word Sheila.
Yeah.
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 Your parents a little high when they were younger?
No. They wanted us all to have Irish names, and my oldest sister was actually born in the UK, and they didn't have anyone to check the spelling with of her name, so hers is spelled like the anglicized way, and then my next sister has like a silent G in her name, and it's really long, and she used to cry when she was like learning to write her name because she was like, "It's too long, I can't do it, I don't understand." So then they got to me and they were like, "Okay, here's a nice, simple, short one.
4 letters, done."
Yeah.
We picked Arden's name out of a book, but I think it's vaguely British somehow. I don't know, UK-ish.
To me, it's like distinct. Well, I guess, yeah, it could be British. To me, it's like distinctly a US sounding, but maybe
hold on a second.
That's just because I don't.
No. Arden is a unisex given name and an English surname of locational origin. It is derived from 3 places, thus called in the United Kingdom: in Yorkshire, North Riding, Cheshire, or the Forest of Arden in Warwickshire. I don't know what any of that means.
Cool. Yeah. I just think of Elizabeth Arden.
Yeah, she's pissed because everybody's like, there's a couple of Ardens in the world, and one of them, like, I think one of them branded their name Arden E, which is her middle initial. And she was like, "Oh, I was going to start a business one day and call it Arden E, but now that exists." So she's like, "Damn it." Anyway, so, okay, so you are, let's see, you've had diabetes a very long time. You went to your diabetologist. A diabetologist. That's a really cool word. And and you didn't know what you wanted. You wanted a pump. What made you, after all that time, decide on a pump?
So I actually had a pump on my 13th birthday. I started on an insulin pump, and I was so excited because I got to eat. Before that, I wasn't carb counting. So from the age of 4. Act Rapid or Nova Rapid or whatever it was back then.
Sheila, you lose you lose your signal once in a while. I think it's because we're doing the way we're doing it. But I hear you now. Like once you were 4, then you can go from there.
Okay, just let me know. I might I can change over to a hotspot or something if
it's only happened twice so far.
Not good. Okay. So when I was diagnosed, obviously started on the like Novo Mix 60/40 or for whatever, I was 4, I don't remember. After that, they were like, here's a long-acting insulin, here is Nova Rapid, take 6 units for breakfast, 6 units for lunch, 5 units for dinner. Could not get the concept. It came back to...
And you're gone. And you're back. I'm going to guess right about here. Seems to be how long it takes. Síle?
Here? I mean, I can hear you.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you at all till right then.
I'm going to switch to my phone's hotspot because at least I know that works.
Okay.
Whereas, yeah.
Berlin internet, not good. You can manage your diabetes confidently with the powerfully simple Dexcom G7. Head now to dexcom.com/juicebox to get your free benefits check and learn more about the new Dexcom G7 continuous glucose monitor. If you prefer the Dexcom G6, you can get it as well. Right at my link, dexcom.com/juicebox. Dexcom is an easier way to manage diabetes without finger sticks. The G7 is a simple CGM system. It delivers real-time glucose numbers to your smartphone, your smartwatch, with no finger sticks required. Effortlessly see your glucose levels and where they're headed, so you can make smarter decisions about food and activity in the moment. When you go to my link, you can see videos and pictures, find out how to get your free benefits check. Everything is there. Everything you need to get started with Dexcom is at dexcom.com/juicebox. How about the new G7 warms up twice as fast as any other CGM system, so you'll have more time with your numbers. It also has a new 12-hour grace period, so you can swap your sensor when it's convenient for you. Are you looking for a little backup? You can share your data with up to 10 followers. My daughter shares hers with me and her mom, and some of her roommates at college. You can do this too. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get some peace of mind with Dexcom. There are links in the show notes of the podcast player you're listening in now, and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Dexcom and all of the sponsors. You gotta see this new Dexcom G7. It's so small and easy to use. My daughter's been wearing it now for a couple of months, and I'm telling you, it is fantastic. The G7 is super easy to put on, to wear. Arden can't even tell she's wearing it. It's smaller. It doesn't stick out as much from her clothing as the G6 did. And I mean, the G6 didn't stick out much, but the G7 is, boy, is it flat. Just go ahead to the link to check it out. Dexcom.com/juicebox. And don't forget about touchedbytype1.org. While you're on the internet, check them out. All right, I'm going to get you back to Síle. This episode has a ways to go and a long and very interesting story to tell. Also, Bon Jovi's only 60. But hey, Bon Jovi's only 60.
We're here?
Yeah, you can hear me?
What the heck? Yeah, I can hear you. Right. Bon
Jovi's 60, but he looks like he's 10 years older than Springsteen, who's 73.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, Bruce Springsteen eats organic, so... Yeah.
You think that's it? Because aren't they both like Italian guys from Jersey?
I don't know that much about Bon Jovi, if I'm honest.
You don't need to be honest. Wow, Patti Smith looks terrible. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I saw her a few years ago, but she was still great. She just, yeah.
Oh, she's 76. And then I take that back. She looks amazing.
So, anyway, my diabetes educators could not beat carb counting into us because for 6 years we'd just been like, no, we take this much insulin. That's what we do.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, but if you go out for Chinese food, you can take more. And they never really said like, you should take this amount. They were just like, more. So we were obviously like, what does that mean? No, just take 6 units. It's fine. So when I was starting the pump, I had to actually learn carb counting. this meant that I could have like chocolatey cereal for breakfast. That was the theory. That was the idea. It was like, if you have the insulin pump, you can eat whatever you want. You don't have to have these like 30-gram carb meals and a 10-gram snack at 11 and 2 and whatever. So it was the idea of this flexibility, which these days you can totally have MDI, but at the time was not really what was done. And basically my A1C was so bad that they were like, maybe we'll just give her a pump and see what happens.
What could it hurt? It could hurt nothing.
They were like, usually we only give the pumps to like the people who show us that they'll be able to make the most of it, because it's so, in Ireland, the state pays for it. But you have to kind of justify that their money's being well spent. But with me, they were just like, what have we got left to lose? Let's just give her a pump and we'll see what happens. So, I think my A1C around that time was maybe 12 or 13%.
How old are you at that point?
13. So at the age where I'm old enough to leave the house by myself and go hang out with my friends, but not, I guess, mentally mature enough that I like don't eat a piece of cake because I know that I shouldn't, because I haven't taken insulin for it, So I'm just kind of, teenager, preteen, whatever, hormones, rebelling, listening to emo music and eating, I don't know, whatever I want. And even, honestly, even outside of that, even with like meal times and stuff, it just never, it's too long ago for me to now think, was I doing it wrong? Were my parents doing it wrong? Were the nurses doing it wrong? Who, you
don't know, and there's no way to figure it out.
Yeah, at the time it was I didn't have the analytical skills for that, and I was too, deep in the middle of it.
Right.
And looking back now, I don't really know. I just know that it wasn't good. And I hated checking my blood sugar. And I didn't mind the injections. I didn't mind doing insulin because I was like, I need the insulin. It will make me feel better. It means I can eat. But the finger pricking, I was like, this doesn't do anything. This doesn't make me better. It just gives a number that's probably bad. And then someone will yell at me. And so it was, was very excited about this insulin pump. And I'd say for 2 or 3 years, my A1C was down. It was the first time I'd had an A1C in single digits since a while.
And was that,
and it wasn't like amazing. It wasn't like it was like 6 or 7. It was probably 8 or 9.
Right.
And after a few years, the novelty wore off. The doctors were saying, like, at one point they were like, are you withholding insulin because you want to lose weight? And like sort of screaming it at me in this really scary, angry way. And I laughed because I didn't know that was a thing. In hindsight, I don't know. I didn't know that was a thing, but after they told me, I sure knew it was a thing. So I don't know if that was the best idea. But I just laughed because I was like, the idea that I was putting effort into having a bad A1C or having bad control, as opposed to just being so depressed that I didn't care what my control was like. And they were all like, you must feel horrible. You must feel terrible. You must feel so sick all the time. And I was like, this is just how I feel. Like, this is normal. And yes, I don't feel good. Like, I'm severely depressed for a 16-year-old or whatever, but this is just how it is,
Were you, do you think you were like clinically depressed? Do you think that they were right, that some of it was just your elevated blood sugar had you feeling terrible? What do you think when you look back?
I mean, the fact that now I still definitely suffer with depression, but I can manage it better, and like in healthier ways. I do think I was depressed, and I think a lot of that was coming from things like, I guess the isolation. Like, I didn't know other people with diabetes. I knew one other kid. He was my friend's brother, and he was like, my mom was like, oh, his A1C is 7, and now the doctors are like, oh, you're so good, you should try get it down to 6. So that's all I knew about this other kid with diabetes, was that he had an amazing A1C. But I didn't know other people with diabetes. So I was kind of like, And, you know, every teenager feels like no one understands me. The world is against me. And I think no teenagers more so than those with type 1 diabetes. So, yeah, I think it was kind of a no one thing, but everything all at once. Fights with my parents about why my blood sugar was high. Was I lying? Was I sneaking food? Why didn't I check my blood sugar? Things like being punished for having a high blood sugar when I was looking at my two older sisters, and they didn't have to have good blood sugar, you know? They just, their body did that for them. So I was like, hang on a second, you're grading me against something that no one else is being graded on here.
Yeah. So when your blood sugars were elevated, your parents didn't really know what to do. They saw a person who did better numbers than yours and thought, well, I guess it's possible she's not trying hard enough, or she's lying, or something like that. And you're just like, I just don't, like, I have no tools over here at all. I have no idea what to do. Yeah. And I'm resistant to it.
I think for them as well, though, like, I think they didn't know what else to do, or they didn't know what else was in their control. So they were like, well, these things that we have in our control, we've done. So the only thing left is her. She must be doing something or not doing something.
Right.
You know? So I get it. I also get it from their perspective. I don't think they were maybe as well equipped as parents are these days.
Yeah. Were they better at parenting away from diabetes, or was this the norm for them?
I mean, since I moved out of home, we get along great. Since I left the country, we get along even better. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't, you know, they're not perfect. Sure. I don't think anyone is, but I don't hold it against them. And I don't think that I think maybe outside of these circumstances, if this hadn't been an issue, I don't think there would have been many problems.
Your older siblings, do your older siblings have a closer relationship with them?
I wouldn't say closer. I think me and my parents are very close, but it's sort of because we were forced to be, if you know what I mean. Sort of forced to be close through pain, if that's a thing. You know, when you struggle together, you do have a close bond. And then I think also my sisters felt like my parents focused a lot of attention on me as a child, and they were like, Síle gets everything she wants because she has diabetes and they only pay attention to her. And I was sitting there being like, oh my God, can they stop looking at me for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was sort of this like perfect storm of just teenage hormones, chronic illness, parents either not having the tools at their disposal or just not being equipped to deal with it. And
why does everyone always think that everything's better that someone else has? Why is that? It's such a fascinating, like, human reaction.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grass is always greener. Like,
but,
that's better.
I mean, at the same time, I try my hardest not to show other people how hard stuff is. So I totally understand what they think.
Because you think other people are putting their best foot forward all the time. Like, you know, it's funny. You said date a girl. The front of their house looked immaculate. The backyard looked like a junkyard.
That's hilarious.
And they ran their lives that way too. Like,
my sister lives down the street from an influencer. I don't know, maybe Instagram. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And she said that their house is an absolute mess, except when they're filming something. So
you ever notice? Like,
I don't think she knows them that well. She just she walks past and she's like, "Oh, they're filming a yoga video today, so their living room is clean," type thing. So
it's interesting. No, it really is interesting. I used to about that girl. I used to think of it as being very Catholic. They just wanted everyone to know everything was great. They didn't care if it was great, or they couldn't impact if it was great. They just wanted everybody to think it was.
I didn't think of that ever as a Catholic thing, but that's extremely my family's mentality, and obviously we are
Sheila, you're
Irish
Catholic
people.
Just teasing. They don't let you out of the country if you're not Catholic, right? Like I don't think they let you out of the hospital. Don't they baptize you as you're coming through?
The thing is, like, you joke, but actually to go to school, if you want to be placed higher up on the list to get into a school, you need to be baptized.
Sure. No, I wasn't joking.
So everyone is baptized. So. There was one kid in my year who was Jewish, and he was just left out of everything. All kinds of because we do all kinds of activities during school time. Well, which I find appalling.
The joke's on you, Ireland, because everyone's so pale that in a war, they're going to be able to see everybody night or day. You're not going to be able to sneak up on anyone. These glowing, translucent white people are going to be coming at everybody, and we're going to be like, there they are. I see them over there. And
they're the Irish.
Yeah, they're the Irish, and they're depressed and they're drunk, so we can beat them.
They haven't seen the sunlight in 400 days, so...
Do you buy into that at all, by the way, about the depression from Irish backgrounds?
Well, depression in Ireland, definitely. I don't know if you're familiar with seasonally affected disorder.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's a thing. Like this time of year in Ireland and also in Berlin, but it's worse in Ireland. It's like you're so far north that the sun rises at like maybe 9:30 in the morning and sets at like 3:30 in the afternoon. So you go to work in the morning and you leave and it's just dark all the time and you never see the sun. And it definitely has an effect.
Yeah. That whole part of the world, like so many people that come on here have some sort of a background from that part of Europe, and they have autoimmune issues. And I'm always like, what is that about? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Gotta be a thing.
It's anecdotal at best from me, but as I approach 1,000 people interviewed, it hasn't slowed my thought down at all. You know, even
I think as we go along, we're just going to discover suddenly that everything is autoimmune, you know?
Well, you know, like I have a large group of people, you know, enough that I'm like, where are you from? And they're like, from Minnesota. And then you ask about their background, and their background's kind of like whatever Vikings are. And you go, and then you start going, oh, okay, so people immigrated from this one place to here, also Minnesota Vikings. Now I'm getting it. Okay. Like it's all coming together. And
I don't know what that means.
It's a football team, the real football.
Okay.
Not the one where you kick the round ball, but when you throw the
with
football.
Your foot.
Yeah.
Where you kick the ball with the foot?
Yeah, soccer. You the understand football. What I'm talking about.
Foot to the ball. Yeah. But when you were like, someone's from Minnesota, I was like, I hope he explains what this means.
Yes.
I don't know where that is.
Right. So not the football where they kick the ball with the foot, but football where they throw the ball with their hands. That one.
Like the rugby, but less tough.
But more aerial.
Okay. Yeah.
More throwing of the ball. Anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Point is, I think there's something to it. I just really do.
Possibly.
Yeah. The vitamin D deficiency and the anemia and the whole thing. I don't know.
I have a friend from Finland who has Addison's disease. And that is also one of those Nordic Viking countries.
Yeah. I mean, I know nothing about that.
There you go. There's another person.
When you said Finland, my mind conjured up an image of someone living on an ice float. So I was like, oh.
That's a little bit. Yeah. Basically.
I don't know. But anyway. So.
Yeah. No, sorry. I'm just shaking the milk carton because I'm pouring another glass of tea.
Shake your milk.
Cup of tea.
It's fine. Absolutely.
It's shook.
It's shooken.
It's shook.
Yeah.
I mean.
Good.
Oh, what?
Now, I was going to ask you if we can, you have the coolest job and I want to understand it, but it's so specific. If you don't want to talk about it, it's okay.
Wait, what job?
I don't know. Like the thing you say on Facebook that you do.
On Facebook? I mean, I definitely, I don't use Facebook. I only use Facebook for diabetes groups.
That's fine.
So, I mean, it's just like, something about NASA, right?
Yeah. Is that not true?
So I wrote that when I was in university. I specialized in music technology, and one of my projects in my final year was it was a project based on a specific type of sampler, and we had to use either create our own samples or use like free what royalty free or like, you know,
sure.
license free type stuff. Nothing copyrightable. And NASA has this massive sound library of sounds that you can just use royalty free. So I made a piece of music out of NASA sounds, and I think that's when I updated that.
This
so
is the saddest,
that's like over 10 years ago.
This is the saddest moment of my adult life.
I'm so sorry. No. I do actually work in music though. I work in music rights.
How do I trust that statement? So I
don't know.
I have for as long as I've been aware of who you are. Can I say what's written here?
Sure.
Okay. I have thought to myself, this person whose name is spelled in a way that I don't know what it says is a space musician at NASA. And in my mind,
I wish that was true.
In my mind, you sit at like an organ and you play music for people while they work at NASA. And you're telling me none of that is true? You motherfucker. I'm gonna send you the piece of music that I made back then. Can I use it on the podcast?
I mean, if you want to, it's all royalty-free music, anyways.
I want to. You send it. It's gonna be. Okay, it's gonna be in this episode.
I will.
You have disappointed me in a way that I didn't think it was possible.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you thought that was real.
Everything about this is a lie.
I'm so sorry.
I have been warmed so many times by the words space musician at NASA. I can't even begin to tell you. It's changed my life. I'm sweating now from the news.
You can still hold on to those warm memories.
No. I can't lie to myself like that. What do you do for a living?
I work in music rights, so helping like independent musicians, composers, labels, that kind of stuff, collect their money internationally, basically, because it's overcomplicated and I'm
gonna vomit.
It's not really designed to help creators get their money. It's more designed to help big labels, like
of course, yeah. No, we've all heard that story, right? Like nobody gets paid for what they make, right? You have to go in there and fight for it.
So that's my whole.
That's your job. How does that be?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm gonna let it go that you're a big fat liar. And how disappointed! I swear to you, my body temperature has risen like 4 degrees. I'm like waving. I look like Scarlett O'Hara right now. I'm like waving air in my face. I'm so disappointed.
I'm so sorry.
Is that not a job?
I don't think so.
Oh, mother.
I'm when you said it, I'm picturing like someone like flying around the universe in a little ship that's powered by playing the organ. When you were like, I pictured you behind an organ, I was like, yes, in a tiny spaceship, zooming around like da 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 da. But no.
It says space musician at NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
It does, yeah.
And then it says you live in Germany, and I'm like, oh my God, does NASA have a place in Germany?
I'm on a, I don't know how to say that in English, like a displacement? What is, hang on.
Now you've displaced my happiness, I can tell you that much, but I'm not
displacement,
sure.
is that the
I'm
word?
not sure what you're saying, but are you looking up English words now?
Yeah, displacement, I guess. So I specifically, within music rights, I work in French music rights.
Okay.
Because at university I studied music and French, neither of which helped me to actually get into this industry. But now that I'm here, I like to tie them together. I sort of accidentally fell into French music rights jobs because I already worked in music rights and I also speak French. So there's certain terms that I have never used in English, so I don't know what they are. Yeah, displacement, that's the word.
Okay. All right, well, listen, let's get past this. I mean, honestly,
okay.
If we were married, I'd think of leaving you right now. I'd be like,
I would understand if I'd
God.
lied to you for our whole marriage about what I do for a living. And you were going around like at family barbecues being like, yeah, my wife is so cool. She's a space musician.
I'm an idiot. Síle, that's what I'm learning. I'm a moron. I think that's why I'm upset. I looked at something and my brain was like, that's not real. But I'm like, no, a lady on the internet says it is, so it must be. Are there other things on the internet that aren't true?
I don't know. I feel like we would know.
Yeah, you're right. Everything's got to be true.
We would know, yeah.
So tell me a little, Jesus, this is really a letdown. I got to be honest with you.
I'm so sorry.
No, we'll get past it. I mean, as I keep saying, we'll get past it, and I can't move past it.
And we're still talking about it.
Well, the problem is that I'm going to shift into some of the things that you put in your intake form. So, like, you've talked about some complications, and it's just hard. It's hard to go from like fun to so you have diabetes complications. So,
yes.
What are they?
So I think it's actually, I don't remember what I said in my email to you, but I think it's actually gone beyond that at this stage. So I guess the first thing to come was my eyes. For years and years, the doctors were saying there are changes in your eyes. You've the beginning of retinopathy. You have to change your, get better control, or you'll regret it. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm fine. So in 2019, I started to notice some black specks in my vision. I was like, I don't know what that is. It doesn't seem great, but my vision hasn't ever been that amazing anyway, so it's fine. And one day I'm in work and I'm looking at the computer screen and there's this big black spot on my vision, and I'm like, that doesn't seem good, but I'll see about it at my next appointment. Mm-hmm. And suddenly the black spot sort of starts to not expand, but sort of looks like, for want of a better way of explaining it, looks like there's little worms creeping out of it. And I was like, holy my eye is bleeding. Sorry, I just swore.
It's okay.
Okay.
I was more upset that you misused the term. It's for want of a better term.
What did I say?
For what of a better term?
No, I definitely said for want.
All right, we'll go back later and I'll check the whole thing.
Okay.
Probably going to be the name of the episode now.
It's just my accent, Scott. You just can't understand what I'm saying.
Look at you. Irishing it up to try to get out of this. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, I definitely said the right thing.
Okay. I
don't even know what that would mean for what of a... No.
Yeah. All
right. I went to the hospital. They said, we don't have an eye doctor. They spoke in German. I didn't really speak German at the time. They told me to go to a different hospital eventually. And I did. And they were like, oh, your eye's bleeding. And I was like, oh my God, it's been 5 hours. Yes, I know my eye's bleeding. Yeah. And they said, you need some laser cauterization, which I'm sure many long-term diabetics are familiar with. It's I think a pretty normal thing to go through if you have diabetes for a long time, many decades. But they said you need a lot of it. So I had to go into the hospital every day for about 2 weeks to have them. Basically, it's like an eye exam where they shine a bright light in your eye, except then there's also like this green light that they shoot more sporadically, and which sometimes hurts. So
I see.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt all the time, but just sometimes.
Any concern that your lie about being a space musician has brought these lasers into your life?
I think, it was a certain amount of wish fulfillment, I wanted to work with lasers, and here we are.
So these treatments are 2 weeks you did it for?
Yeah, every day for 2 weeks. So Usually I think most people are like, oh, I had one of those 3 years ago and now everything's fine. I had it every day for 2 weeks. It was really hard. It's hard to sit there, like keeping your eye open when they're going to shoot the bright light and everything. Mm-hmm. And then they did my left eye. My left eye was not so bad, but they were like, there's still some, we should do it. I went away, saw my outpatient ophthalmologist, who was like, yeah, it all looks okay, but you have cataracts, right? And I was like, what? What are you, cataracts? That's what happens to old people. So anyway, I have cataracts and that's fine. And I go back to the hospital for my checkup, and they do a different type of scan. And they say, the bleeding has mostly stopped, but you have a bunch of fluid at the back of your eye. So you're going to need injections you need eye injections. And I was like, and I'm going to need a Xanax too.
Yeah.
So,
And a fifth of vodka.
yes. And then I show up on the day for my first eye injection and they're like, oh, wait, actually, yeah, your other eye has it too. So you're going to need eye injections in both eyes. So anyway, I do that for 6 months. I have 12 eye injections every 2 weeks. There's one, like they alternate the eyes. And I'm like, okay, all my eye stuff is fine. It's all done. It's great. And they're like, okay, but next we got to talk about your cataracts. And I'm like, yes, people keep saying this to me. So we schedule a cataract surgery. By now it's February 2022. I have my cataract surgery. It goes fine, I guess. At this stage, I can't really see much out of my right eye anyway. It's just very blurry. And afterwards, I'm like, my vision is not worse, but it's just kind of whatever. A month later, I get another bleed. I recognize it this time. I go to the hospital and they kind of say like, it'll probably clear up. And it does. And about a month later, it's cleared up and then it happens again. So I go back and I'm like, this keeps happening. And they're like, yeah, we think the healing from the cataract surgery is causing your eye to pull on your retina, which is causing it to bleed. And we're very scared that your retina is going to detach. But also we did so much laser a few years ago that's unlikely because it's kind of just welded on there. All that laser, it's probably not going to come off, but it probably will keep bleeding. You need another surgery called a vitrectomy. I'm not going to explain what a vitrectomy is because I don't want anyone listening to this to be overcome with nausea, but I'll let you look it up if you want to. So I had that in November and I'm all healed up.
Wow.
And I'm having my next cataract surgery in the middle of this February, 2023. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's so much.
It is. It's a lot. So that's just my eyes. I recently saw a nephrologist because my GP had noticed some decreased kidney function. And he just sent me a letter with blood test results and like here you have these like referral slips and it's just for your health insurance to show like, yes, my doctor said I needed this, so you have to pay for it. And he just sent this referral slip with like a lot of exclamation marks and like kidney reduced function, level 3A kidney disease, whatever. And I'm here Google translating everything. Like he didn't send a letter. He didn't say like, dear Miss, we found this. He just sent test results and this piece of paper. So I was freaking out. Saw the nephrologist and she was like, well, yeah, there is the signs of the beginning, like the beginning stages of kidney disease, but it looks stable from 2018. Like nothing has changed since then. And I was like, are you telling me I had kidney disease in 2018? And she was like, yeah, I mean, your results haven't changed since then. I was like, nobody.
How did they mail that letter?
Mentioned this to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I about once a year, I have pretty bad kidney infections. These don't help with the whole kidney function thing. I was in hospital for about 6 weeks, or between hospital and bed rest for about 6 weeks in 2018, which I guess is when they did those tests. So she basically said to me that stage 3A is like the very beginning. It means everything's still working fine. I don't need a special diet or medication, but I should keep good control of my blood sugar, and I can probably stay at that stage forever if I'm careful. And even if I go to stage 3B, it's still kind of fine, you know? So I'm not supposed to take ibuprofen, but aside from that, it's okay. But it's a lot. She was like, even once you get to stage 3B, you can stay there for 20 years. And I was like, doctor, in 20 years, I'm only 49. So, and she was like, yeah, but you're not there yet. So, you'll be fine.
Great. Yeah. I remember thinking when somebody told me diabetes complications don't start for 30 years, I thought, well, my kids too. How is that comforting?
Yeah.
Yeah. And not even to say that anything's going to happen. It's just like, why? I don't know. It's a weird thing to say to
But
somebody.
what's weird is that these days, and I see so many people worrying about the complications of their child, like they're saying like my child is 3, they've been diagnosed, we have an Omnipod and a Dexcom, and I'm just so worried that like my child is going to have these complications. And I'm like, we don't know what the complications are like 30 or 40 years down the road for kids with Omnipods and Dexcoms, because we're not that far yet. Like the people who have complications now 30 years down the road, they were diagnosed in the previous century. Like it's not.
Yeah, they came up with like MPH and regular and stuff like that. And
exactly.
shoot 3 times a day.
So
yeah, can I ask you a question without?
Sure.
I'm not saying like tell people what you did wrong, because I think that your point from earlier is well taken. Like I think things just happen the way they happen. But in hindsight, do you see where if something would have happened differently, you might not be in this situation?
I think, I mean, when I listened to, like, honestly, the thing that got me to take control, because obviously when my eyes started bleeding and all that, I took it more seriously, but my A1C was still maybe 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. It was a bit better, but like it wasn't where I wanted it. What actually made me take it really seriously, or not even take it seriously, but just get better at managing it, was hearing the way that you speak. And I mean, I went right back to the start, like episode 1, hearing the way you spoke about Arden's diabetes was so like, I know she's your daughter and everything, but it was so separate from you. You know, you were like, it's this objective thing, and 1 + 1 is 2, and I do this, and I give the insulin, and I do the pre-bolus, and it wasn't this personal thing. It wasn't like, oh, life is unfair, and I have to take insulin. And it was just like an equation almost. It was like, you know, this is how we do the thing, step by step, and it was very. Whereas for me as a kid, it was like this personal attack on me. Like every time I checked my blood sugar and it was high, which was almost every time, which you can understand why I didn't want to check my blood sugar. It just felt like this like moral judgment of me. Like I've done something wrong. Like I'm a bad person, but at the same time feeling like this isn't fair because I didn't mean to do anything wrong. Like I didn't want to do anything bad. Yeah. So I think the more hands-on parents approach, hands-off child approach, I think maybe they tried to involve me in decision-making a little too young. Mm-hmm.
I've heard that from a lot of people, like their parents.
I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want them to understand their care and whatever. And if that's working, that's great. But if it's not working, I would say something needs to change.
Right.
But I mean, also my care team in Dublin, I have this like one nurse who really stands out in my mind. And it's funny because I think back to things that she said and I'm like, oh, she was right. I just didn't listen to her. But she's probably the only one that I, when I think about it, I'm like, I should have listened to her. The rest of them were just kind of like, you're not doing good enough and you need to change these things, and like
not helpful.
Yeah, and they were kind of just looking at readings and being like, you need to increase your insulin here. And I was like, you don't know me. You don't know what I did that day. You're asking me what I ate on July 18th, 2019, and I don't know.
Right.
So I always kind of just felt like these doctors don't know what they're talking about, so I'm not going to listen to them. Which was partly, you know, my own childish arrogance, and also the fact that they, like, even looking back now, I'm like, wow, those doctors didn't know what they were talking about.
Don't you think it's obvious too, even to a kid? Like when somebody doesn't know what they're saying, anybody with a half-tuned bullshit detector is like, you made that up. You know, like if you knew what to do, you would tell me. Like, why are you just telling me I'm doing it wrong and not finishing the sentence and telling me how to do it right?
Yeah, and it's like there were so many times, and I can remember it now, so many times when I was a kid where I was like, I wish someone would just take over my diabetes for me. Like just do my finger pricks, do my injections, just that like I don't have to think about it. And when I think about it now, I'm like, that's what parents these days are doing.
Yeah, it's funny. Arden's at an age now where she's basically like, I have it, leave me alone. I got it. I know what I'm doing. Like that kind of stuff. Right. And I'm like, okay, like, that's fine. But every once in a while, like she'll come back from college and we'll just be, I don't know, in a restaurant, for example. And she just kind of looks at me and just slides her phone across the table. Like, why don't you bowl us for this meal and keep me out of this for this one? You know what I mean? And so, I mean,
I get it.
It's all, I don't know. I have a lot of questions. For one, here's my biggest question. Do you think that For the Want of a Space Musician is too long of a title for an episode? Because I'm afraid it's too long. It's going to get cut off in the player.
I don't think, because most of them do the scrolly thing. And
I'm thinking hard about it. I really think that's the way to go, being honest. I mean,
for the want. You could also, I was going to say you could say For the What of a Space Musician.
Yes.
But I don't know
if people would get that. They just think like, oh
my gosh. Especially because that's not what I said. So
people would just assume it was a typo, don't you think?
Yeah, that's maybe. Yeah.
Hey, also real quick,
I don't know.
So I know, about like 10 minutes ago, you said your last name. You want me to take it out when I'm editing?
Oh yeah, do that.
All right, I will. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think anyone I know listens to this, but
we haven't said anything bad about anybody yet.
Well, I wouldn't want my parents to hear this.
Okay, that's interesting. Why?
Just because we don't, we're Irish and Catholic and repressed, and we don't talk about things like that. So
yeah, I was crying the other day because my son left, and I watched my wife look right through me. I was like, her Irish won't even let her talk to me right now.
Yeah, no, we can't do that. So.
Can I tell you what I cried about?
What did you cry about?
So I like cooking for my family. And
interesting.
And I like to every once in a while, like when I have a little free time, the way I usually unwind is to make cookies for the kids. And they don't even, as they get older, if I'm being honest, they barely eat them. Like sometimes they just sit there and get thrown away later.
Okay.
But I get an immense amount of happiness out of making the cookies. And so my daughter's away at school right now, and my son just moved away really far for a job. And we have some things that every time somebody leaves the house, they leave something behind. So we have these boxes of like little things that have been left behind that I'm getting ready to mail to my family.
I've been abroad for 5 years and I still have stuff in my parents' house.
Right.
So
well, your parents are lazy or they would have sent it to you by now. So I have these boxes of little things that are going to get sent to the kids. And I thought, I'll bake cookies and put them in the box. So I'm making the cookies and it doesn't feel the same. And I'm mixing them and putting them on the pan and it just doesn't feel right. Like the whole thing feels wrong. Like I'm not getting any of the, I don't even know what it is. Like I can't, now I'm standing there at the oven thinking, what is it I even enjoyed about this? Like, right? Like it's like, I'm not enjoying making them. I'm not going to eat them. Why did I like cooking for them when they were here in the house, the kids? And why is the fact that they're not here robbing this experience of every bit of joy that it used to have? And I start to cry. And then my Irish Catholic wife looked at me and just pretended she didn't see it.
I'm not going to lie, when you were saying and something didn't feel right, I thought you were going to say and then I realized that I'd switched the sugar and the salt or, something that you had just
No, I meant metaphysically.
No, you just
feel right.
Emotionally.
I wasn't it just in my heart, the task was empty.
Yeah.
And it used to feel so wonderful. And that wasn't the point of the story. The point of the story was watching Irish Kelly look at me like, oh, he's crying.
Yeah.
I'm just look away so I don't have to deal with this.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. I cry all the time. It's like one of my big pastimes is having a good cry, but
on your own.
Oh, like whatever, on my own with people. Like and I will cry in front of my parents, no problem. But I would not do so, or I wouldn't want to do so while bringing up something that they did or didn't do, or like them being the reason.
Yeah.
That's more the part I mean, the talking.
You're not getting to that ever.
Or saying like, oh, hey, mom and dad, if maybe you had done things differently, I wouldn't have kidney damage now. Or, I'm like, they don't need that either. Right. If I want to, like,
and you also don't blame them, right?
No, yeah, right. Exactly. It's just different. Like, it was different. And I think, during the pandemic, I think a lot of couples separated, and I think those couples, maybe if it weren't for lockdown and whatever, I think they never would have separated, and they may have gone on to have very whatever happy normal lives if they had never gone through that period of like extreme stress and pressure and confinement. Which is not to say that like it was meant to be or it wasn't meant to be or whatever. I just think that sometimes you can't take the pressure and you don't stand up to whatever it is that's thrown at you, and doesn't make you a bad person or whatever. It just...
Right. Oh, I think anyone
what it is
during lockdown who didn't think, I wonder if we're going to make it out of this, wasn't being honest with themselves. If you didn't think that, if you're married and you didn't think that, you weren't being honest with yourself.
Do you want to hear something horrifying?
Of course I do.
On October 2nd, 2021, I was supposed to get married. But 6 months before that, my ex was like, it, I can't do it anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, we just came out of winter. Obviously, everything is terrible. His sister and her friend moved into our 2-room apartment for 4 months.
Ew.
Over the winter, like when there was lockdown, couldn't go outside. Berlin is super dark in the winter, everyone was depressed, no one could get out of bed in the morning. And after the kind of winter was done, he had a thesis deadline coming up, all this kind of stuff, and he was just like, oh, I can't take it. And I was like, you're just letting, like, that's the pressure talking. Summer's coming, it'll be, you'll feel better. You'll submit your thesis, like the pressure will be off. Your sister has moved out of our apartment. It'll all be fine. Just like, let's just talk about it. If you want to take some space and like, I don't know, maybe go back to Ireland for a while or whatever. And he was like, no, I'm done. I'm gone. And he's still done and gone. And that's, I was kind of like, oh, he'll be back. I'm super angry, but he'll be back. And no, that chapter is closed. But I'm like, if that pandemic never happened, I'm pretty sure I would be married right now. And it's okay that I'm not. And I'm happy with my life now. And I am with someone new and it's all good. But
yeah, because he might have just divorced you in the middle of it then. Like 6 months in, he might have been like, that might have been more pressure. Wow. Yeah. See, that seems like luck to me.
The weird thing is that I do think the whole concept of marriage or whatever was the catalyst that like, oh God, I can't do this. But the thing is that like 6 months before this, no, not even 6 months. Let me think. Yeah, 6 months before this, we adopted a puppy. And I'm like, a puppy is way more commitment than marriage. A puppy is going to live for like 10 or 15 years.
Can't divorce the puppy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, he was just like, you keep the dog, whatever, she's yours. So,
you keep the dog. What a warm, was he also Irish? What a warm conversation you had.
Yes, exactly.
Seriously, I'm leaving. Okay. That's it.
I'm just like, sometimes I think about, if it weren't for this weird moment in everyone's lives, I would probably be living a very different life right now. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Who's to say whether that is good or bad? So, I mean, to bring that back to the diabetes, it's like, it is what it is. We love to say that in Ireland. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
And sure, look, there you are. It is what it is.
Where do you stand on this?
We're very resigned,
Very resigned.
We like to just We like to just say like, yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. I've had so many interesting moments. Like I have my wife's father, who I think comes from a pretty strictly kind of British background, and the mother's Irish. I mean, they're just mixed right in there. And the mother, my mother-in-law is like the mother. I just said it like I was pairing up puppies. Like I was like, "You're gonna love this one." The mother's Irish, and so I've seen them have conversations where one of them has said something emotional, and then everyone gets upset, and then I get blamed for having a conversation that lets somebody say what they thought out loud. They're like, it's his fault.
You Americans, you just say your feelings all the time.
Yeah, it's his fault. I'm like, whoa, you said it, not me. Also, I'm not involved in this. But it is really, and my son has it from my wife. But Arden's quiet right up until she's me. And then she's emotional. And my son's quiet right up until he's me, and then he's goofy.
No,
it's interesting. Okay. So, yeah. But where do we stand on this Saoirse Ronan girl? We okay with her?
Saoirse Ronan?
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I like her, Saoirse. But I don't know how you feel if like you're from the place.
I think she's grand. I'm not like a big fan. I'm ambivalent.
What a review. I hope she hears this.
No,
what a review. What good news. She doesn't hate you. Doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Doesn't really know anything you've been in.
Yeah, it's more like, who am I to judge, you know?
Aw, that's a lovely your generation statement. Young people won't judge anybody.
I mean, I love judging people that I know, but people I don't know, it doesn't feel...
Generalization is right. The basis of all that is good and fun. And I don't know why.
Absolutely.
It's why young people won't do good podcasts, by the way. You can't... You have to be able to just randomly say something and go, I don't know, but I don't like that girl in that movie.
Yeah. I feel like every time in my life when I've sort of taken a stance on not liking something, a few years later I've turned around or I've met someone who I admire or I agree with on lots of things, and they're like, oh no, that thing actually I really like that, and I'm like, why do I hate this thing again? And then I give it a second chance, and I'm like, actually this is good. So I just,
I think that's good though, because it lets you see that you had a strong feeling about something for no reason. And then but if everyone walks around being milquetoast all the time, then you're never going to take a stance on anything. So you won't be able to look back later and go, oh, I was wrong about that. Like me with Bruce Springsteen.
I'm very pro having very strong pro stances. So I'm strongly pro.
You're pro.
Proness. I'm pro, yeah. I just think it used to be cool not to like things, and I think it should be cool to like things again,
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. But I mean, a good example of, like I told you, I listened to that Bruce Springsteen interview. And then after that, I listened to more Bruce Springsteen music in 2 weeks than I'd heard in my entire life. And so he got me. He had a good story and he got me. And I wasn't mad at myself for having spent my whole life not listening to Bruce Springsteen. And I was just like, all right, well, I guess this is a thing. I don't love it still, but I mean, I don't understand why people go to every Bruce Springsteen concert they can.
Because you never know if he's going to make it to the next one.
This is just you being funny.
Yeah. I mean, he was on, who's that guy? Jimmy Fallon, the guy who likes Ariana Grande. Is it Jimmy Fallon?
I hope Jimmy Fallon hears this. To this person, you're the guy who likes Ariana Grande.
Well, it's just, so I really love Ariana Grande. And so that's kind of, I think the most Jimmy Fallon content I've ever watched is when he has Ariana Grande on, which is weirdly frequently. So that's
I just imagine that Jimmy Fallon believes that whether you love him or not, people know who he is. And that if he heard that, he'd think, this person has no idea who I am other than to say, I'm the guy who likes Ariana Grande. I love that idea. Oh, I hope.
Or else he'd be like, who's that weird German girl? She doesn't know what she's talking about.
You're not even German. Stop it.
No, I'm not. But, But yeah, no, Bruce Springsteen was on Jimmy Fallon and he's talking about the lyrics to Thunder Road and the argument over whether the lyrics are the screen door slams, Mary's dress sways or waves, because apparently the crowd is divided on this. And he's talking about like how meticulously he went over everything at the time and how he was like he was really neurotic about every detail. And how he went back to settle the argument and he opens a sleeve and he's looking at the lyrics and it says, Mary's dress waves. And he turns around to Jimmy Fallon and he's like, the book is wrong. It sways. And I love him. He's just, I don't know. He's like.
Can I ask a question that's weird?
Sure.
All right. Do you find yourself in your generation looking at things like music, for example, where a song is super catchy and then because of generations of people being more sensitive to certain things, the thing becomes persona non grata all of a sudden? Like, what was that Christmas song that we can't sing anymore? Baby, It's Cold Outside. Because
I thought you were going to say Fairy Tale of New York. I think all the Christmas songs are just canceled now at this point.
Yeah, but like we can't sing Baby It's Cold Outside because some people say that it seems like this guy's getting this girl liquored up and keeping her in his house, right? And
I think people got over that one, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, or like there's some songs, right? Like She's 16, she's beautiful, and she's mine being sung by a guy who's way older than that. Like that,
yeah.
Yeah. But you don't care?
I mean, the big one, I guess, for my generation was probably Blurred Lines, the Robin Thicke one. It's got some. I don't even remember.
Is that because of how he treated people on the set while they were making the video, though?
I think it was the lyrics. I remember at the time I was kind of like, I don't really get this, but student unions are trying to have it banned on campuses, so I'll just go with it. I mean, I thought it was a cool song, but I wasn't not enough to defend it, you know?
Yeah, I would not defend Robin Thicke as I don't know him or care about him, but I would tell you this, he doesn't seem smart enough to write something thoughtful.
Yeah, no. I mean, there was apparently in the lyrics, there was a lot of stuff about like, it's in the title of the song, the blurred lines, kind of the idea that, you know, like consent and sometimes
I think you want
lines
it.
And,
I think,
yeah,
okay, all right.
That was the whole thing.
Can I tell you something?
It wasn't.
I've heard that song a billion times. I didn't even listen to it close enough to know that.
I've talked about this. I mean, I feel like at least 3 or 4 times in my life, and that's the first time that I made the connection. So.
Yeah, I'm not. But this is back to the Jimmy Fallon thing. Is Robin Thicke somewhere thinking that everything he says out loud is consumed by his fans and understood completely? Listen, on a smaller level, I do that sometimes. I'm like, I already said that on a podcast, as if that means everyone's heard it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. Anyway, this isn't the point.
I don't have fans or listeners, so I don't think about this.
You have me. I was a huge fan of yours.
I'm so sorry.
Seriously. It's really fucking depressing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But
I will send you my space music. I actually have a second track of space music that I can send you.
I want this. It's literally going to be on this episode. Do you have it as okay? That I get. It goes right on this episode. We've skipped over one big thing in your notes. Are we going to talk about it?
Yes, we can.
So it's I don't know. I guess people say trigger warning and stuff like that, but I can never remember to do that. I apologize.
I mean, I think you brought it up already during the conversation.
It's my trigger this week because I have interviewed a lot of people this week who have had suicidal thoughts or attempts. And I don't know what happened that they all got clustered together in one recording week. But did you have thoughts or did you try?
So I realized I never finished the bit about the insulin pump, which was that I had it till I was 17 or 18. Basically, the doctor said, this is costing the state more money than we can justify with your results. I said, I don't care. I don't give a shit. I'm depressed, whatever, take it away from me. I can use pens to do the same thing. They did. That was that for 10 years till I went to my German doctor and I said, hey, I want an insulin pump, and was expecting to be fought on it, saying like, oh, we reserve those for the best diabetics. And he instead said, well, what do you want? And I wasn't expecting that. But anyway, I'm now on Omnipod and everything, and closed looping and everything, and it's all great. HbA1c is 5.6. But back then, back in the days when I had my old wired insulin, tubed, I guess, they're not wires, they're tubes, insulin pump. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. So when I was 14, so I guess I'd had the insulin pump for about a year and a half. Like as a kid, it was... It's weird to think about it now because it doesn't happen anymore, but anytime we had a family dinner, so anytime we went to a restaurant or like sat down on a Sunday or whatever, there would always be some point in the conversation where my family would like try to wind me up because they knew that I mean, in hindsight again, being a child with a high HbA1c, high blood sugars, it's pretty normal. I think that I was, moody's not the word, but like I was easy to anger. I didn't have tantrums, but I would get angry, like, deep in my bones, like red, flaming angry.
Yeah. Quite
easily, which is not something that happens now. So again, I don't think that's all, maturity. I think there's definitely a very chemical element of,
oh, I agree,
my blood sugars are in control. Yeah. So anyway, it sort of became the game of like, who can make Síle angry during dinner? And I, being a child, was not aware enough to stop myself playing into this. I think as an adult, you go to dinner with your racist uncle and you sort of just sit quiet, or you don't play into it. But as a child, of like, this kind of happened for as long as I can remember. So as a child of 7 years old, you're not going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm going to be the bigger person and not give in when my dad is teasing me, So this, every single meal, every time we went to a restaurant or tried to have like a nice family evening, every single time there would be something. And someone in the family would say like, oh, Síle, relax. They're just trying to wind you up. And this doesn't really, I don't think that's a reason. That's like saying like, oh, he was only joking.
Right.
So I would play into it every time. I would get angry. I would storm off crying to the bathrooms or whatever. Or else either I would get angry and storm off crying and someone would come and get me and be like, oh, they're sorry and whatever. Or I would end up like yelling or something. I would get in trouble. Like my parents would yell at me and I would go off crying and whatever. Sort of same result. Anyway, not good feelings. So I'm 14-ish. Insulin pump for about a year and a half at this point, I guess. And I've just finished, I did this sort of like science exhibition competition thing, which ended, well, it involved like, you prepare a project and then it's judged and whatever, but it basically involves like a week of activities, socializing with the other competitors, like that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Very little parental supervision, whatever. At this point in my life, I have already started drinking because in Ireland, it's not so much that everyone does it, but it's very easy to do. I was at this point like rating my parents' alcohol. I realized that it was not a good feeling, but it, the way that people these days who are addicted to alcohol, they like it because it's a form of like, it's an escape. It's a form of escapism. As a 13 and a 14-year-old, I was drinking to escape my day-to-day life. So as a 14-year-old, I'm at my science competition. I'm with all my friends. I've made loads of new friends. We're drinking at this like, disco or whatever. And when that week comes to an end and I'm suddenly thrust back into like, oh, I'm with my family every day, I'm with my parents all the time, parental supervision, and it just like something kind of snaps. We're having dinner, it's the Sunday evening, and like we have whatever the fight is at the dinner table. I run out of the house. I don't take anything. I don't take my phone. I don't take anything with me. I just run out. I go for a long walk. I'm very upset. I'm like sitting on a bench in a park. It's like 9 p.m., not really a time that any 14-year-old should be out in a park. Mm-hmm. And I'm just sort of sitting there being like, I'll show them, you know, like I'll show them, like I'll teach them a lesson. Mm-hmm. Like I'll teach them to be so mean to me and to upset me. And I don't even know how much it was, but I think I took like 120 units of insulin.
Oh my God.
Just sitting there. And I had done a site change that day. So it was like fresh cartridge, fresh everything. And I don't know what it is now. I don't have any pain with the Omnipod, but back then, if I did more than like 5 or 6 units, it was painful. I think it also injected much faster than the Omnipod does. Mm-hmm. So that's possibly why. So I mean, it wasn't fun to inject. And there was a bolus limit or whatever. So I think I had to do like several, I have to input like several rounds of, I don't know how many units.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of start walking again. And obviously I'm starting to feel the effects now of the low. And as anyone will tell you, if you wake up in the middle of the night with a low blood sugar, you eat the whole kitchen. And it was sort of like that, in that I stopped thinking about, like, you know, my brain went into like survival mode. Yeah. It was like, okay, stop with those depressed metaphysical, depressed intellectual thinking, and just get some sugar, you know, get some food. Stop thinking about your feelings, just get food now. So I'm walking past a supermarket, I go in, I buy a bunch of stuff, I don't even know what it was. I eat it, and I don't, like, the maths doesn't work out, because 120 units of insulin, I didn't even know. But as we know, insulin sensitivity is not linear. For me, when my blood sugar gets low, I become extremely insulin resistant. Okay. Which is great for me, because once I hit about, like, I'm trying to think in American figures here, once I hit about 50, it kind of just plateaus there. It's very rare that I go below that, because my body just is like, no insulin, no more. So I guess that helped. I guess my liver helped out. I don't know. Wow. So I go home, I sit in the garden for a while. I think I also set a temporary basal rate. Like, I haven't thought about this in so long that it's like, it's not the kind of thing I like to think about all the time. So the details are blurry. But I think I also set a temporary basal rate of like 200% or something. And then, you know, I get in trouble with my parents for running out and not telling them where I was going, taking my phone, whatever. And I go to bed. And I get up the next morning, and I still obviously feel like crap, because obviously when you abuse your body, like it was like a hangover, you know, and mixed with everything else.
Plus how you felt that led up to
Yeah, and it's like my brain, you know, my blood sugar had stabilized enough that my brain was back to like, okay, we've sorted out the emergency. We can go back to thinking about our like what's that the hierarchy of needs thingy. It was that basically. Yeah. It was like, okay, that this thing is gone, so now we can think about this thing. So I go to school, and I'm still like, Jesus, like, I just do not want to be alive. Like, I can't deal with this. And I was a very, like, what's the word? Like, I don't know, like high achieving, like a school student.
Mm-hmm.
I always put a lot of pressure on myself in school. So school was generally a stressful place. So again, I'm in school, and again, I just take like masses and masses of insulin. And I get home, I don't even know, like thinking back on it now, these events don't make sense because I'm like, I would have had to eat so much, and I don't think I did. But I get home somehow, in one piece. My mom is at work, and I go up to my room to see I go up to my room to see all the vodka bottles lined up on the bed, and I'm like, gosh, she was cleaning my room or something, you know, which is not something in our house. It was you clean your own room. There was none of this, you know, mom did not do our laundry. Well, I'm sure she did our laundry at some point, but at age 14, I was doing my own laundry. I was cleaning my own room, and I'm there going like, I don't know why she was in here, but I'm in it now. There's no getting out of this. Mm-hmm. And I was like still feeling the way I felt the last 2 days, plus somehow hanging on with having taken like 300 units of insulin in the last 24 hours. And then faced with this, and I was like, oh my God, like I just want, there's all that, plus now I'm also going to get in trouble. And I was like, screw this. So I go into the medicine cabinet. My sister, I know you're going to want to ask questions about this. My sister has rheumatoid arthritis since she was like 9 years old. Mm-hmm. So there's more autoimmune stuff in the family. She has these giant boxes of paracetamol, like big tubs that you can't buy normally over the counter because they just won't sell you that many. And I just take one of the tubs and I go into my room, and then I hear the front door open. So I stash it in a drawer. And I'm like, okay, I can't take care of that now. I can't take care of killing myself now. I've got to do it later. And I go downstairs, and my mom is there, and she's like looking at me, you know. And there's no one else at home at this point. I don't know where everyone was, but it's just the two of us. And we sit down in the kitchen, and she just wants to have the talk of like, you know, my teenage daughter is drinking, and now we're going to talk about the dangers of alcohol. But for me, it feels so much bigger because it's piled on top of everything else. I feel like my life is over. And also, when considering the ways my parents would say, like, your blood sugar is high, so like you're grounded, or we're taking your phone away, that kind of stuff. I was like, well, if that's what they do for a high blood sugar, what the hell are they going to do for this? So I'm sitting there, and my pump is beeping because the insulin reservoir is low, right, or is empty, or whatever. And we're talking for a while, and she's like, so like, what are we going to do? And why did you do this? And then she's like, and why the hell is your pump beeping? We just changed the reservoir yesterday. And at this point, I'm like, oh, whatever. It's all out in the open. I might as well just tell her. So I don't have loads of other ways of explaining how else I got through 300 units of insulin in 24 hours. Right. So I launch into it. And it's hard to remember what her reaction was. I mean, obviously she was upset and I was upset, but I think she just was sort of like, okay, obviously things are really hard for her right now, so we're not going to freak out about it. We're just going to try to, I think she was like, I'm just going to try be a bit more understanding with her. And I think she didn't say anything to my dad or to anyone else in the family at that point. But, you know, just kind of had dinner, went to bed. That's fine.
Was it just a big relief to tell somebody?
I think so, because I mean, you hear this so often about a lot of suicide attempts being these kind of cries for help. And I mean, that was what it was. And even if the cry for help was to the people who were also making me feel bad, it was like a, cry for help in the sense of, look at what you're doing. Like, look at what your actions, like, look at the pain your actions are causing me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of like, okay, well, maybe we might take this seriously now. And so the next morning she comes in and she's like, so I called the hospital and, God, I'm really struggling to remember like orders of events now. She was like, I called the hospital and we're gonna go in and see the girls. Like, that's what we used to call the diabetes nurses, which is the girls. It's like, we're gonna go in and see the girls later. And I can stay home from school. And as I mentioned previously, we were in charge of cleaning our own rooms, which meant that my room was never tidy. It was constantly looked like just an explosion. So she's like, what if, until then, what if we just like go through we're just going to pick up your clothes and tidy stuff, put stuff away. I think at the time, it didn't seem weird to me, but thinking back now, I'm like, I think she wanted to go through and see what else was there.
Yeah.
And at one point she opens this drawer and she finds this handful of paracetamol that I had just stuffed in a drawer the previous evening that I had totally forgotten about, because so much other stuff had happened. And I think that's when she kind of flipped, because she was like, insulin is something that Síle understands, and Síle knows that, and she obviously ate the sugar and she didn't die and she's still here and like it all worked out. Whereas the paracetamol, she was like, what she said to me after, and I don't know if this is true about paracetamol. I've never looked into it. I feel like maybe she was confusing it with better drugs. But she was like, the problem with, overdosing on paracetamol is that at first you feel like everything's better and you feel really good. And then you get really, really violently ill. In hindsight, I feel like maybe paracetamol is not a good enough drug to make you feel really good ever. But that's what she said to me, the 14-year-old at the time. And she seemed really scared by that because it was something that I think she wasn't expecting. And she seemed angrier. Like, it was like before that she wasn't so angry, but then it felt like she sort of thought I was like just doing it to mess with her, or to, it didn't feel like it was about me anymore. It felt like it was something I was doing to her, which was never like, I wasn't doing this for fun. I wasn't doing this just because I was like, what will be hilarious is to mess with people by trying to kill myself. It was like, no one will listen to me, and I need to find a way of either making them listen to me or else just escaping all of it. So for me, it was like deeply, deeply selfish, deeply only concerning myself. But for her, she started acting like it was this targeted attack on her. And I was like, come on, lady, that's not
right.
Don't make this about yourself. Even though, I realize everything I'm saying is kind of contradicting itself, because I'm saying I was doing it because I wanted to affect them, but that was because of the pain I was in, not because I just wanted to cause them pain. Yeah. So anyway, we get to the hospital. They check me in. They are basically like, we don't trust you to be at home right now. And I start to see this very nice, calming psychologist. We go through events, all that stuff. And I think all I can remember is that I think that must have been the Tuesday. Yeah, it was the Tuesday I was admitted to hospital. And when we got to the Friday, I was like, please don't discharge me. I don't want to go home, because if I went home, it meant I would have to like face my parents and face like, I knew they were so angry at me. Because to them, it was like, I wasn't doing this because I was in pain. I was just doing this because I wanted to be a little shit and cause problems for them, which is not like, it's not an amazing way to be received. And I think when my parents, I don't know what was communicated between doctors and parents or whatever, but I think when my parents realized that I wasn't coming home that weekend, they were like, okay, well, we have to tell her sister something. So before that, it was just Sheila's in hospital for her diabetes, which, to be honest, was not a rare occurrence for me. It happened probably once a year, where the doctors were just like, we don't understand how your A1C is so bad. Come into the hospital so we can just observe you for a while. So I think by the Friday, my parents were like, okay, we have to tell them something. And again, I don't know if the doctors told them I didn't want to come home or if they just said they weren't discharging me. But my parents were sort of like, had the attitude of, again, she's just doing this to make our lives more difficult. It's a pretty expensive hotel. Not that it costs, I mean, in Ireland, healthcare is free. Like they weren't, paying this, but you still get a bill. It's just, it's paid by the state. So I'm released on the Monday morning, and we are told that we're going to start like group therapy, group counseling as a family, which I think is a great idea because obviously there's something not working there. But I think, and this comes back to our fun Catholic repression, my parents took it as, now people are going to know that we're not like, the perfect, happy Catholic family. The Catholicism doesn't come into it. They never would have thought Catholic family, but I think they were like, we don't want people to know our business. Like, we're a family. This should be between family. And also the idea that they had, this group therapy wasn't just to enable us to talk as a family. It was also the fact that a child had tried to kill herself. So obviously, I guess in the US, social services would be called. But in Ireland, honestly, I don't know what the structure is like because it's not something I've engaged with a lot. But basically just to keep an eye on things, see what was going on. And we had these very nice, these two very nice ladies would come to our house, I think once a week. And the whole family would sit down and we'd all talk. And I think there was a lot of anger there. From my part, I got to hear from my sisters how they felt, stuff like that. They felt that I got more attention than them because I was the problem child or whatever. Stuff from my parents about like me not looking after myself and stuff like that. So it definitely helped get things out in the open the way they should be. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think everyone should do therapy no matter what their life circumstances are. Even if it's not all the time, I think at some point in their life, everyone needs therapy. And I had been seeing psychologists since I was a little kid. Like when you're diagnosed in Ireland, they organize like annual visits with a psychologist just to check that you're developing normally and all that stuff. So those visits increased after this. They asked if they needed to take away my insulin pump, but I think they kind of were like, this, I don't think the insulin pump is the danger in this scenario. I think she's a resourceful child and if she wants to do something, she'll do it. So I kept the insulin pump until I was 17 or 18. And things changed. The family dynamic changed. We didn't have more of those episodes, like the picking on, or not even picking on, but like trying to get a rise out of me because I was easy to get a rise out of. But what I did notice was that it shifted to instead doing that to my mom. So instead of going to a nice restaurant and sitting down as a family, instead of the dinner ending with one of the kids, to an outsider, one of the kids throwing a tantrum and running off in tears, it would end with my mom dissolving into tears. And I was like, wow, our family is so fucked up. And I don't think our family is, outside of the ordinary. I think every family has their problems, or, especially around communication. But, I don't think we're special in this, but I just was like, oh, wow, we obviously have some like thing here we need to work on. If we have this like weird need to make someone cry at every meal. And it
beyond
was weird
just
having
like,
that observation.
Yeah, beyond just like what the way it was described to you, which is just like, oh, I'm just trying to get a rise out of you, or I'm just kidding or something. It just kept going and going and going until somebody broke.
Yeah, and it's like I don't care if you're just trying to get a rise out of me. Like, why is that something that's fun for you?
Yeah,
I didn't mean that you want to do.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh no,
mean
I
that.
know, I know,
yeah.
but it's just like, why is that something that you, as like a normal, nice, fun-loving person, like, why is that your way of expressing that? So yeah, I feel like the others probably noticed it as well, that it was like, oh, wait a second, suddenly all of our meals are ending in tears, but it's a different member of the family. Maybe we need to address this. But I guess, slowly over time, we got better. We don't talk about that time. And it kind of, like, for several years was not talked about. Except, like, there was one time my mom brought it up in an argument, but she had totally, like, rewritten events in her mind so that instead of me running out of the house because I was upset with them, it was because I was upset with something one of my friends had said. And she was like, oh, I don't want you hanging out with those friends anymore because, like, they upset you so much last time. I was like, what are you talking about? And I understand being in denial about that kind of thing, and especially being part of the reason. Mm-hmm. I totally understand not being able to deal with that as a concept. But yeah, it was very much just like, we don't talk about this. And when we do talk about it, it's totally warped.
It's crazy.
So yeah, totally crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I continued, like, even after that, I continued, like, very much not wanting to be alive. Like, everything was too hard. Diabetes was too hard. I felt bad all the time. But I also, like, after this, I don't know, didn't have the courage, which feels like a weird way to phrase it, but, I wasn't brave enough to, like, actually do anything about it.
Did you want to? Like, how long do you feel like you wanted to?
Oh, God, like, probably 10 years.
Into your early 20s?
Yeah.
Okay.
In a sort of way that I was like, I'm not going to do anything about this, but if God struck me down in the night, I would be happy about it.
And when did you move out of your parents' house? How old were you then?
Oh, about that age.
Sorry, yeah.
I lived on campus for my last year of college, and it was better, but I think the mixture of final year pressure and still very much, I'd still go home for the weekends. I was still in Dublin. I was still, still in that environment. It was not an amazing year mental health wise or physical health wise. And once I graduated, I moved home for about 6 months, where I was working. I was working with my dad, so in the company he worked for, and I was also still working in the bar that I had been working in college. So I was working 2 jobs and living at home with my parents, and it was just hell. And I started seeing. I remember seeing my endo, and he was like, I think before he even spoke, I was like, hey, I know my numbers are really bad, but I don't have it in me to care about it. You know, I don't have the strength to look after myself because I don't care enough about myself to do that. And he was just like, okay, we'll make you an appointment with a psychologist. Which was, you know, he was like, there's no point giving you advice about insulin right now when that's obviously not the problem. So I see the psychologist, and I'm seeing her for a while, and I finish my contract at my dad's company, and I go off and get my first real big girl job. And a few weeks later, I move out into a teeny tiny apartment, with a bedroom the size of a single bed, with like maybe a foot between the bed and the wall so you could get in. And about a month later, my psychologist, about a month after I move out, the psychologist is like, you know, I think our work here is done. You seem fine now. So it's definitely a thing. And it's not that, you know, I don't hate my parents or even dislike my parents. And like I said, we get along great, but it just wasn't an environment that I could be in at that time.
So are they different parentally than they are, like, when you think of them? Like, if I just asked you to describe your parents as people, how would you think of them? You okay, by the way? You're breathing.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm having a good cry here. So.
Did you expect this when you asked to come on?
Oh yeah, I knew I was gonna cry.
Oh, okay. All right.
I knew.
I'm sorry.
I knew it.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, but if you don't mind, like, can you describe them as people, like trying to forget about your parental-child relationship?
Yeah. So my mom is like very chatty, and she's really involved in like social stuff, and she loves organizing stuff. She loves just very kind of like no. She's like very good at organizing other people and very bad at organizing herself.
Okay.
So like sort of person who she can like go into a room and like rearrange it and I don't know, do amazing stuff. But then you look at her office and it's like just stacks of papers and empty boxes and like Christmas decorations and, you know, so I don't know.
That's interesting.
She's a little bit scatterbrained, but also very, I don't know. She's got this like she's got all this spatial awareness and logic-y brain, mathematic-y type stuff, but then got this sort of like crazy, what's that? Like crazy scientist kind of stuff going on, where like everything around her is a mess, but the thing she's working on is perfect type stuff. But very outgoing, bubbly, social, friendly, whatever. My dad is...
Let me ask you about your mom. Was she one of the people who picked on you in the restaurants?
I would say less so.
Okay.
But at the same time...
she didn't stop anybody from doing it either, right?
Yeah, and also, like, she was probably the person closest to my diabetes care and that aspect of like me feeling bad about like having high numbers and whatever. So it kind of and she's also definitely much more like she cares what other people think. So like if I was going out of the house wearing something she didn't like, she'd be worried about what the neighbors would think of her because her child looks like that, or that kind of thing. So, and she would definitely put that on me. Like she'd be like, you know, why did you do this? What are people going to think of me? And I was like, I don't know what people are going to think of you. It's my life. Like,
do you think she thought you looked bad, or do you think she worried about what people would think? Because I see those as two different things. Like, I
don't think she thought I looked good.
But was she judging you? Like, if there was no one else in the world, would she have looked and said, "I'm not comfortable with what you're wearing"? Or was
I think it was definitely more about other people.
The pressure from the outside people. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I
wonder why she cared.
I think again, it's just like, to me, that feels very Irish. It feels very like small town. Everyone is going to talk about everyone, which all of Ireland is. Ireland is just all small towns. Like there's no big towns. Even Dublin, like, which is the capital city, it's only 1 million people. Like,
still not that big,
yeah.
It's something about how she grew up that got in her head about that. Then So now describe your dad as a person.
My dad, I think to his friends would seem like laid back, funny. He likes he likes kind of leisure stuff. He likes playing golf and sailing and going for walks and, you know, taking it easy. And he got a rotary saw and he likes to do stuff with, I don't know, trees and stuff. Now he's retired now since about 2 years. So he's like, I'm going to take up a hobby and start carpentry. And I don't know. He likes to enjoy life.
But he was the one that would take the piss out of you, right?
Yeah. And he also, grew up, he's a very smart man. He grew up working very hard, but he also was kind of, he came out of university, you know, worked as an engineer, a chemical engineer for a few years. And then someone basically headhunted him to run a company. And that's where he stayed for the next 40 years in his career. So he was sort of like, I worked really hard in my life and that's where it got me. And he is a little bit one of those people who is like, I don't know what these people are all complaining about. If they just knuckled down and got a job, they'd have a house and a nice garden and a boat and a car, you know?
Does he have an engineer's mind? Is he a little not socially, he's a little socially awkward?
But no, everyone in the family has the engineer's brain. Like we're all problem-solving, logic-y type people.
Do you think he was trying to toughen you up because of the diabetes? Like, have you ever thought, I mean, obviously not the right thing to do. I'm not saying that. I'm wondering, what was his, because you're not describing a mean person.
Yeah, no, it's, and I mean, this is obviously my perspective now as I know them differently. I think if you'd asked me 15 years ago to describe them, I would have said my mom is a nosy busybody who's always telling me what to do and she's so annoying. But I think for the family, it was just that it was funny. They were like, oh, look, if I push this button, she's going to explode. And ha ha ha. I think they weren't thinking about it like, oh, this actually affects a person.
Are you like them? Let me tell you why I'm asking. I'll never forget in second grade, I had a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Nelson, and she and I hated each other. And I mean, imagine how old I was in second grade. I mean, what is
I
that?
don't know how old that is.
Right, hold on a second. Now you're going to make me think. 5 in kindergarten. I was 7. Okay. So I'm 7. She's a grown ass lady. Okay. And we went at each other like, I don't know, like we were Russia and the US during the Cold War. Like every day we beat the hell out of each other. Like it's just back and forth and back and forth. And I will never forget that on the last day of school, she took me out in the hall. I spent a lot of time in the hall. Sheila. So, she put me in the hall on the last day of school when everybody was having a party and having fun. I had to stand in the hall for 7.5 hours by myself.
Oh my God.
She's just going to get me one more time. Right.
I think these days they call that child abuse.
Well, trust me, look at me, made me almost tough. And so, at the end of the day, she comes out and she says something to the effect of, in the end, Scott, you and I, we're just too much alike. And I was like, yeah, I see that. and then I went in the room, grabbed up my stuff, looked at everybody who I would never see again, probably all summer, felt like forever. And I left. And I'll never forget her saying that. Like, I do think there was something to that. Like, we were so similar that we just attacked each other constantly. And I don't know why that happens.
I mean, I would say I'm similar to both my parents. Like, there's definitely aspects of both of them that I embody or whatever.
Also, by the way, I don't think you should treat a 7-year-old like that. She obviously had the upper
No,
hand.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
By the way,
like
if she was still alive, which she's not, she's got to be dead forever. But if she was alive now,
I love that you know that.
Oh well, I mean, she had to be in her late 50s then. I mean, that was 43 years ago. She's not alive now. She's no Bruce Springsteen. And so I just want to tell her dead self, I could have got the best of you as an adult. If this would have been a fair fight and it was her in her 50s and me in her 50s, I could have drove her out of her mind if I wanted to. But as a 7-year-old, I was limited still.
Yeah, no, you. But also, it's like you were 7. What were you supposed to do? She was a grown woman. It's
a ridiculous story that absolutely is true that I just kind of remembered because of your conversation, honestly. And I was like, wow, they're just torturing each other.
Yeah. I mean, I had teachers over the years who, were extra hard on me because they wanted to they thought the class was too easy for me. I was resting on my laurels and they wanted to push me so I would get better results. I had teachers, we had sort of like, we do these like fake exams before our real exams to prepare. And you send them out to like external examiners from other schools who mark them because they don't know you. So they can't, there's no favoritism or whatever. I had teachers who marked down my independent examiners because they were like, no, I don't want you slacking before the exam. So I had teachers who were super hard on me, but I never felt like they were picking on me. I just felt like, I understand what this is. They're clear in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I need to keep up the hard work, whatever. I don't think that's what this was.
No, your dad was just being shitty.
Yeah, this felt like, she's the clown today that we're going to pick on and laugh at, and that's
fucked up is what that is.
It is, yeah. But I mean, in the end, everyone I think learned a lesson of compassion and empathy and whatever.
Well, on your ass, they learned it. But I get
exactly.
you. Yeah. And did you? Yeah. And so now, as an adult, like almost 30 years old, day to day, how often do you think about this? It seems like you struggled to remember the story a little bit. So,
yeah, I would say I don't think about it. I think the only times that I've thought about it in the last year are when I thought about the podcast. Like when I thought like, oh God, what if Scott asks me this? Or I don't know.
You wrote it down, Sheila. I would have never gotten to this. You could have just been the fun girl with the accent who lived in Germany, but no.
No, but it's like a few nights ago. I think on what day is it? Is today Monday?
Yes.
Okay. A few nights ago, maybe it was last night. I don't know. I was like, oh, that's soon. And then of course I couldn't go to sleep because I was like, what if, what things do I need to remember? What do I need to say? What if I forget to say this? Like, those are the only times I've thought about this in the last year.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to give good news to the people who are listening. So you're just, you're not tortured by it. Would you consider that you live a fairly normal life now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, aside from it's kind of a joke now when I meet new people that I'm like, oh, excuse me, like I'm a little bit blind, or like, oh, I forgot my reading glasses, or oh, no, I can't take ibuprofen because of my kidney disease, and
Mm.
oh, I just have to do my vitamin B12 shot because I have pernicious anemia because of my. Oh, I was diagnosed last year by my endo with polyglandular autoimmune disease.
What the hell?
Which basically just means you have a bunch of autoimmune diseases.
Oh, okay.
I have Hashimoto's as well, and yeah, they monitor me for all the stuff, Addison's and stuff like that. So I think technically once you have three, so pernicious anemia, Hashimoto's, and the type 1 diabetes, I'm technically polyglandular autoimmune diseased, which is classified as a rare disease.
A rare and complex recessively inherited disorder of immune cell dysfunction with multiple autoimmunities. I think that what I just heard was we all got to stop getting Irish ladies pregnant for a couple of decades to try to get rid of these autoimmune diseases.
It's too late. There's more Irish people outside Ireland than there is in Ireland. Like we've been emigrating for too long. We're everywhere. We're among all of you.
We're among all of you. You said it like you're aliens. You're like, yes, we're even in your government.
You can't find us, you know.
That was funny.
So,
oh my god.
I think it's too late for that. I mean, like I said, my eldest sister has arthritis. My other sister doesn't have anything wrong with her. And I think she's also she's the middle child. But she's the middle child, and she has that like middle child syndrome of, that plus, well, the other two have things wrong with them and they go to the doctor all the time, and I don't have anything wrong with me, and no doctors want to see me.
Can you imagine? That's what I'm telling you. Everybody thinks everything's better all the time. Well, well, this episode is going to do great things for the people who say that I talk too much, because I really didn't talk very much at all. And
there were times when I was talking and I was like, am I still online? Did I disconnect?
You were telling some deep ass story. I wasn't getting involved in it. I wanted to hear what you were going to say. I don't even think
actually
good.
I just thought when I was saying I never think about my my juvenile suicide attempt, it's actually another thing that causes me to think about it is when I see parents worrying about their kids. And I'm kind of like, guys, I've been through it. I'm still here. It'll be okay.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, I wish someone would have worried about me.
No, I mean, people were worried about me. They just didn't express it in the best way, I guess. But no, I mean, when I see people kind of saying like, my kid is sneaking food, or my kid doesn't care about his diabetes, or my kid whatever, I'm like, I feel like you need to zero in on the mental health here, and once those problems are better, everything else will follow.
Sure.
But it's like the first thing because I mean, regular people, when they're depressed, they find it hard to shower and brush their teeth. And I was like, when I'm talking to people about this, I'm like, shower and brush my teeth. Like, I can't even do my insulin. What do you...
Do you think you have depression because of diabetes, or do you think it's something you would have had without diabetes?
I don't know if there is much point in speculating on that, because there's no way to know. But I also at the same time think it's because of diabetes, but that's only because the two are so linked. Like, so many people with type 1 are also depressed. So I think if you asked me from like a scientific point of view, I would say probably yes.
I feel as a non-scientist and as a person who spent the entire last day of second grade in the hall, that inflammation has something to do with depression.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think the inflammation is a lot. So
yeah, and I mean, and also just this idea of isolation, of like, no one around me knows what I'm going through. I think it's like when you put the two things together, it's like the magic recipe for being super depressed. So I also have extreme anxiety. Like, I've been shaking the whole time we're on the call, And I'm just talking normally, but I'm like very shaky. My heart rate is 100 right now.
How do you think this conversation will impact the rest of your day? Because it's 6:30 where you are, right? In the afternoon?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's only
in the afternoon,
like 12,
in the evening.
In the evening. It's 12:30 here.
Well, I mean, it's been dark for like 3 hours already.
Like, do you think you'll just like get done and be like, all right, I'm okay? Or do you think that this will weigh on you for a while? Or how do you think sharing this, is it been good for you or is it upsetting?
No, it's good. I mean, after I do anything, even after just like a morning of, if I have like 2 meetings in a row, I need to like sit down for a while, you know? So I'll probably just like drink a cup of tea and go for a walk, take my dog outside.
Nice.
And I think tonight we're making Chinese hot pot for dinner. So we're going to go to the Asian market.
That is lovely.
That's going to be it.
My wife just did a 5-day fast. And she last night laid out the entirety of what she's going to eat today. She's like, for breakfast, I'm going to have this and this. And at lunch, I'm going to have she's like, I'm going to have a tuna sandwich at lunch with a tomato. And she talked about it like it was heaven and sex and money wrapped all in one. She was just like, it's going to be wonderful. And I was like, okay.
So. I believe you. I mean, I spent Christmas in France because, I mean, with the vitrectomy that I had in November, I wasn't able to, I'm not going to explain why, because if you Google it, you'll know why. I wasn't able to fly afterwards. And to get to Ireland from Germany, you need to fly. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's like a 50-hour drive plus a ferry plus more driving. So, and also I can't drive. So, all those things. So instead, we took the train, me and my boyfriend, who is French, and my dog. We took the train to his family for Christmas in France. And for the like 4 months before we went, we just talked about all the food we were going to eat.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can't get French food in other places. And we have this amazing cheese shop here run by French people where we get all our cheese. So it's not even like we couldn't get it. We were just like, oh, it's going to be so good.
She said different, slice of tomato. Like she said, we are going to get into a time machine and go back to when we were young. Like she was just so just so taken by the whole thing. Well,
I'm happy for her. That makes me happy.
Oh my God, she's gonna have the best tuna sandwich in the world today.
But you know what I mean? It's like it's cool to like things. I'm happy that she was so happy about that.
Oh, it's the fast. She's just She did. It was a 5-day fast. So
honestly, if fasting makes you even happier to eat food, maybe it's worth it.
There are some people that fast once a month. I don't know if I'm that person, but
for health purposes, or
yeah, I think they do it because they think it's good for their vitality somehow.
Okay, it's just once a month seems.
I think
I don't know.
It seems frequent, but maybe I think the intermittent fasting allows your body to do the other things, like almost like you know what I mean. Like it gives it a chance to like do the digestion, do this kind of stuff, like work on other things because you're not constantly asking it to digest food.
Yes. So. And I think with when you have a CGM, I think you see that. I think when you're on like a level flat line, you're like, okay, here we go. Time for normal life when I'm not constantly, even just on a metaphorical level, like where I'm not constantly monitoring my blood sugar to make sure it doesn't go above this level or below this level. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I haven't eaten in 5 hours and I'm, on a flat line and nothing's happening and I can concentrate on the other things in my life without worrying about everything else. It's like that's what your body's doing.
I'm not certain, but this might be the longest episode I've ever recorded.
I was just thinking it's been a very long time.
Wow. How about that? I actually just got a message. A new review has been sent to the podcast. And it is not good. So just now I'm like, what is this? And I clicked and I'm like, oh goodness. And
does it say you talk too much?
So this is a person who never heard the podcast before.
Oh.
They Googled a term, wanted to learn more about it. They don't have diabetes, nor does anyone else in their family. And they really don't like me. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever done this before because this makes me I feel like I don't care and I feel uncomfortable at the same time.
Okay. I know what you mean.
Hold on a second. Because honestly, I know what the podcast does for people. It's okay if one person, misunderstood me, and this person definitely misunderstands me. It sounds so harsh. I searched out glycemic index on podcasts in an effort to educate myself. First of all, get a hobby. But let me say I'm not diabetic, nor thankfully are any of my family. I do, however, like to be informed. Okay, you're great. I get the setup. Let's get the kick in the ass now where I'm not great, right, Jill? Here we go. I have to say that I found Scott irritating and very self-centered as he spoke over Jenny. You misspelled Jenny's name, by the way. While she was trying to make a point. Poor Jenny tried to make a point, and I spoke over top of her. And this person's from Great Britain, by the way. I don't know if that has anything to do with...
That makes sense. Okay. It makes sense that they're obnoxious.
I didn't think I was.
Sorry, I don't know if you know that Irish people have a thing about English people.
I don't, but I'm glad I'm saying this in front of you.
They occupied our country for 800 years and caused a genocide and all this kind of stuff. I'm sorry. I don't hate all English people. It's just like when we're talking about generalizing, I'm like,
So now the next sentence is going to indicate how she completely. I'm so sorry. I said she. It could be a guy. I don't know by the name. There's no, they didn't leave their real name, which, by the way, bold of you not to leave your real name while you're trashing me. Furthermore, he seemed to boast how when wearing a glucose monitor, he couldn't get his sugar to spike, even though he gorged himself eating 2 slices of cake. Now, see, that's a complete misunderstanding of that. I was talking about how a person with type 1 will fight with the glycemic index and glycemic load of foods because they don't have any insulin to resist them. Whereas a person like myself who doesn't have diabetes was literally had to gorge myself to get myself up to 160 blood sugar. I wasn't I wasn't boasting about it.
I just can't believe you would boast like that about how good your pancreas is.
My pancreas works so good. You guys should be jealous. This. So this is an obvious misunderstanding of the context of the conversation, plus probably of sarcasm, because I guarantee I made some stupid joke in there like that, right?
And probably just of the whole concept of the podcast itself.
She left the podcast early and won't be back again to listen. Which
no.
I so thought she was going to try one more episode. And again, could be a guy. 45 minutes of my life I won't ever get back. So
they are long episodes.
Well,
sorry. I say after 2 hours and 12 minutes.
You might want to shut up. But again, but I love that somebody listened to something that has 830 episodes and 1,100 5-star reviews, and after 45 minutes thought they were like, oh, I know the real thing that's going on here. I'm fascinated by that.
Well, yeah, because they like to be informed, so
and they
obviously they came to this with an open mind.
And they have to take the time to tell someone else about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You other 1,100
I've never reviewed the podcast, but I think after this I'll go and I'll do it.
Well, I need a couple of people now to push hers down a little bit to get it. You know what's going to happen is I'm going to get a new advertiser and I go, let me go check out the reviews of this thing before I decide if I want to advertise on this podcast or not. And it'll be this. Wow, she really didn't like it. She had a bad time. Well, by the way, she's still.
I'm gonna go on and be like, I love how long the podcast episodes are. They really allow me to experience the depth of detail in everyone's stories.
Would you consider writing a review that said, I searched out glycemic index on podcasts in an effort to educate myself? Let me say I am a diabetic, and there are people in my family who have autoimmune diseases, and I love to be informed. I have to say that I found Scott amazing, and it was wonderful how he and Jenny went back and forth on the topic. And then just put it right next to this one. I'm just going
to inverse every sentence that's in there.
And then put it right next to this one. Furthermore, I loved how he joked about his pancreas stopping the cake and
yeah, absolutely. Wow. I love to hear about cake and pancreas.
Do you know what a glutton I am for conversations like that? I'd love to talk to this person.
Absolutely.
I would talk to them forever about this. So interesting.
I mean, what I will honestly, I will go on and I will write that what I would have written if it weren't for this person is about how I never heard of like all this open source closed looping community stuff before the episodes.
Yeah, I guess
I started at episode 1 and I went chronologically through. So
wow,
it's like in the 200s or something where we first encounter looping or the concept. So, and I just started looping, probably closed the loop 2 months ago.
Oh, good for you.
And in Germany, we have the Libra 3 for like a year and a half here now. So I'm on that, and I have my Omnipod, and I'm like the wireless woman, and
good for you.
And yeah, I mean, honestly, the whole thing, it's like even on a bad day, I still don't have high blood sugar. Even on the days where I don't pre-bolus and I eat food and I don't carb count correctly, I still don't have bad blood sugar.
Yeah. And that horrible person in that review helped you get to that.
Yeah.
I'm such a monster.
Yeah, no, it's like I never would have known about any of that if I didn't listen to the podcast.
Maybe if I'd stopped talking over Jenny so much, you would have been able to figure it out earlier.
Like 150 episodes earlier. Yeah. I don't even think Jenny was in the picture back then.
She wasn't. Jenny had been on the show one time in the first 150 episodes.
Because I kept seeing the posts about like Scott and Jenny, and I was like, is that Jenny who was on one time? Because I don't understand what's happening.
Why would this be? Why would this be the person? No. Well, anyway, listen.
Anyway,
this person is welcome to their opinion, and that's absolutely fine.
And I'm going to go on and mock them mercilessly.
No,
in a few minutes.
Please leave. I would, if you're going to take the time to leave a review, leave your real review of the podcast, because only you and I will understand the joke.
That's true.
Everyone else will be like. Plus, you're going to go through the German podcast app, and she went through the UK podcast app.
I don't know how any of this works.
Yeah, so joke's on her. Nobody's really going to see it because she lives in the UK. It's a tiny little place where hardly anybody is. And I don't know how many people live in the UK. Don't start bad mouthing them again, by the way. Did I lose you, Sheila? Hello? I know you can hear me. What a great way to end the show. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming. 2 hours and 11 minutes. You back?
I'm back. I don't know what the hell just happened.
Sorry. There's 67 million people in the UK.
That's too many.
Christ.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Ireland only has 5 million people, so.
All right. Well, you better raise up a bigger army if you're going to go over there and teach these people a lesson.
Germany is way bigger. I don't know how many people there are in Germany.
I don't want Germany raising up another army. I'm good with that.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah. Let's leave that where it is.
I think we could get the Scottish on our side, though. I don't think the Scottish people like English people probably about as much as Irish people like English people.
I cannot believe how far down this rabbit hole you went.
I stand by it.
I want to just say I don't know anything about any of this. This is just a person talking who I've allowed to come on the podcast, and I love all the listeners in the UK, except for this one lady who clearly doesn't, and I still like her too, or him. Boy, I come off really poorly thinking that was a woman who left that review, huh?
I mean, I think sometimes you just have to pick in order to personify a reviewer, you just have to pick a person.
Having trouble believing a guy could care enough to leave a review about anything, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, I don't know.
You think? I don't think men care about crap.
There's loads of, men on the internet especially. Someone who goes to the trouble of searching glycemic index on podcast could be either.
You mentioned something at the very beginning of this that I thought to say something, and then I didn't want to cut you off. But you were talking about, I forget what you were talking about. And I was thinking that, you were talking about how I manage Arden's blood sugars kind of matter-of-factly. And I thought at that point to say that there have been a number of times in my life where I have thought that being a stay-at-home dad was beneficial to my kids because of the matter-of-fact way that I approach things. And I do wonder if in those very same circumstances, if my wife would have handled them differently. And I wonder how much impact that's had, both for probably good and for bad, because I wonder what I don't do that my wife would have done. And I wonder when that's been beneficial and when it hasn't been. So, but I didn't say that because you were on a roll. So
I'm sorry.
No.
I mean, what's worth saying?
You were chatty as a motherfucker. It was all good.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
But it's, I mean, what is also cool is, as a stay-at-home dad, I mean, you were able to dedicate time and energy to that kind of stuff, which, I mean, both my parents worked. I'm not surprised my mom wasn't micromanaging my insulin dosing from work while I was at school and all this. And also, I mean, yeah, it just wasn't, it was a different time.
Yeah, no, the technology was different, and the ideas about managing diabetes were different, and the insulin was different, and a lot was different. So
yeah. Right. So yeah.
I can't thank you enough for doing this. I really do appreciate you being so forthright with everything.
No, I mean, thank you for having me on. I mean, the thing is, I don't think that my experience or story or whatever is especially unique, especially the more that I hear from people who've lived with diabetes for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess as time went on, I was like, do I actually have anything to say that's interesting here? But, I mean, we managed to talk for a long time anyway.
I think you said plenty. I think it was very valuable.
Okay.
I do think that even if it is something that a lot of people go through, hearing the steps, and I mean, just imagine if this is a thing that happened to you and you're listening, just maybe hearing you say something about a realization you had about your parents or something, that might be a realization that another person hasn't had yet. And it might help them move forward. I also think it's incredibly valuable for them to hear that you are a successful, stable adult. And, because that gives people, I would think, a lot of hope. Plus, you're a space musician. So everybody has to aspire. You know what I mean?
True. Reach for
you
the
should
stars.
spend the rest of your life becoming a space musician for me, if you cared about me at all.
I'd need to
figure out what
go back to playing music, but I will endeavor to.
Nah, you won't. Stop it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Will you hold on 1 second for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
I believe that this nation should commit itself.
Amen. Affirmative. Amen. Roger that, Sally.
Thanks so much to Síle for coming on the show and for lending us this music for our outro today. I also want to thank Touched by Type 1 and remind you to go to touchedbytype1.org and find out all about their programs and offerings. The podcast was also sponsored today by Dexcom. And of course, if you use my link, dexcom.com/juicebox, you can learn all about the G7, hear from real users, and get your free benefits check. Dexcom.com/juicebox.
We choose to do the other thing. We choose to do the other thing. Do the other thing. Do the other thing. We choose to do the other thing. And the others too. And the others too. And the others too. And the others too. And the others too.
If you're looking for community around your diabetes, check out Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. It's a private group with 40,000 members. It's absolutely free, and there's something there for everyone. Type 1s, Type 2s, LADA, parents of children with Type 1, adults, everybody's represented. The conversations are amazing. Check it out. Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. And if you're looking for the Diabetes Pro Tip series, it begins at episode 210, but you can find all the series at juiceboxpodcast.com right at the top in the menu. Check them out.